Hey everybody, hopefully this will work tonight with a live stream. Obviously it didn't work last night too well. Our internet was out. I'm telling you what, when the weather gets bad, man, it's not good on my end of things, that's for sure. But anyways, I was gonna wait for a little while, wait for some people to jump on. That was my goal at least. And then we can kind of get hanging for tonight. So would love for you guys to jump on and say hi if you have a quick second. And then we are going to pretty much get started. So hi to everybody, of course. So anyways, you guys, the first thing I want to talk about, I know I was going to talk about the workshop, obviously, and I'm going to get to that. But the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was this picture that I put up yesterday of this dog named Pete, who is with us for some training. And it's funny when I said the question, what do you see? The answers, some of them, it's amazing to me how much we actually humanize the dog. I mean, the one answer about the dog wanting to be loved and wanting her home and that whole thing, I mean, I kind of chuckled because I'm just looking for the answer to body language. I'm not, you know, I wasn't looking for like the deep story of everything to go along with it. So I was a little taken aback by that. I love the answers though, because it looks like you guys are really trying to figure things out when I ask that question, and I love that. All I'm really trying to do is make you think differently when it comes down to seeing a picture like that. And you guys, the tough thing about pictures of dogs is it is like a millisecond of a snapshot. You can honestly take the happiest dog that you've ever come across, take a picture from a certain angle, and make that dog look incredibly worried, incredibly scared, you know, the whole thing. So this dog Pete, that I took the picture of, I probably took 8 or 10 pictures of him before I finally found one that I thought was good enough to spur on the conversation, which obviously was about his pupils. And I don't know, I mean, I've talked about it here or there. I don't think we've ever made it like a focus of a subject at all as far as when it comes to dog body language, because, you know, when we say body language, we think, you know, it's the ears and the tail and the mouth and you know, the way they're holding themselves. But now we're talking about something very, very small, if you think about it, in relation to the rest of the body. And, you know, a lot of times, you guys, we see younger dogs that come into work, like the year and under or something like that. Their pupils are like huge. And a lot of times it's just because of how excited they are, you know, and how stimulated they are coming in. Especially if they come in with a clean slate, no aggression, anything like that. Now, you can certainly take that dog that's maybe had some aggressive tendencies and the lunging and that kind of thing, and their pupils will be huge. And we have some dogs that are very, very good dogs that when they play, their pupils get huge. And then when they're done playing, they go right down again. So it's really one of those situations that it's just something to be aware of. It's almost like the hackles on a dog. The big misconception in what I was taught, sorry Mom, the big misconception was when you see the hackles up on a dog, it just meant that that dog is aggressive. I think that was the misconception. And that was it for years and years and years. And honestly, I mean, I thought that right up until about 10 or 11 years ago when I first started this. Or, you know, it was whenever you see a dog, put your hand out to him, which now it's like, yikes, we shouldn't be doing that kind of thing. And, you know, so all I would really suggest to you guys is just keep track of your dog's pupils. I know it sounds crazy. I know, like, look at your dog's eyes all the time. We don't need to stare and be weird, okay? Don't just sit there and stare at your dog's eyes and think, I'm just waiting for them to go get big and go small because Ian said so. I certainly wouldn't do that at all. I would look at it from the perspective of maybe when you're outside playing with your dog, just look at the pupils. And obviously when the dog is chilled out, just sitting with you, hanging out, eyes are open, they should be just fine, you know? It's one of those things. Funny story, Serena may kill me for saying this, but hey, Paws and Boots, Serena may be upset with this, but I remember when she first got Aspen, and Aspen was at work for daycare and romping around having a great time. I remember looking at Aspen, I'm like, something looks weird. And sure enough, she had one pupil that was huge and one that was small. I mean, it was the weirdest looking thing. And Aspen's got some awesome eyes. So, I mean, the joke now is like, I think we broke your dog that day because it was such a big difference in her pupils. But she just needed some rest, some downtime, things readjusted, and she was good to go. So we've seen stuff like that happen, obviously. And again, to me, it's just awareness. It's kind of like the hackles thing. It's stimulation. It's arousal. It could be excitement. It doesn't mean that your dog's going to rip into another dog, okay? But if your dog does lunge and reacts that way, then yeah, those pupils can get really big because it's like things are the boiling point inside is just like getting there, and it's raising and raising and raising and raising, and then something's got to cut loose eventually. So it's one of those situations. But I took another picture of this dog, Pete. I'll probably post it in the morning, so you can see him differently. Now, I will tell you this is that Pete lunged at some of the dogs through. We have like a the kennel paneling kind of half wall, and at that point, I'm a little concerned, right? I mean, to kind of lunge at a group of dogs. So I kind of went a little old school with them, with what I used to do, and we kind of separated our big training room from daycare area, and I put a muzzle on him just because I just wanted that extra level of safety. First, I just kind of tested it on him to see if he gonna like lose his mind because he had a muzzle on, and if he did, then okay, I've got to take time to condition it. Or can I just put it on just long enough to like get us through this transition, which with him was all I actually needed. So I put it on him. At that point, pupils went big. So Bobby, hey, at that point, his pupils went big, and he had a muzzle on. He's in a different setting. I've got the leash. Like, everything is brand new to this guy, and I have to take that into account. However, this is also the time to create a clean slate with this type of thing. So I have him on leash. I have like these like accordion kennel panels to separate the two rooms. And it was interesting because you take a guy that lunges like that, and a lot of times those dogs can be very insecure, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to get you before you can get me. And once we kind of opened our big garage door between our two rooms, and I've got the accordion kennel panels lined up, of course all the dogs come over to see me and who I have with me. At that point, little Pete goes right behind me like, dude, I don't want anything to do with all these dogs. And so that was really the telltale sign to me that's like, okay, now, Pete, I know where you're coming from. Now I know how to work with you. You need some direction. You need some protection to know that, hey, in this setting, in this environment, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. And so from there, I've got a couple, obviously my dog Shiloh, who, I mean, I can't even begin to tell you like what kind of dog it just like, I've had dogs bark right in his face, right at him, and he just kind of like, So I actually brought him in first, and Pete really didn't do a heck of a lot with everything. And, as far as sniffing and stuff, Shiloh kind of sniffed him a little bit. You could see Pete was a little uneasy, kind of twitched a couple of times. Brought in another dog. Actually, I brought in Gemma, and she came in, kind of went right by him. She was just kind of ready to go sniff the room and not do too much, which again, I don't look at it from the aspect of, as Gemma's owner, I don't look at it like, gosh, I wish she would have gone over and helped him. I look at it as she did help him. Even though she may not have she was completely oblivious to him, her just going by him and him realizing, hey, that dog actually didn't do anything to me. So maybe this isn't that bad. So I let another in. And this is all in the span of like 5 or 6 minutes. So it's not like I'm just like, overwhelming him, one after the other after the other. But I start, once I see that he's not reacting and he's not doing anything, I took him off leash. Still had the muzzle on. And I waited for probably another 5 minutes or so, and then took away the accordion kennel panel. So now we have one big room. Other dogs came in, sniffed. He kind of made his way to the corner of the room and just kind of sat there. He was not a big fan of those dogs around, but what I had to show him was that none of these dogs were actually going to do anything to him. And I think that's important. Again, that's where that kind of direction and protection comes from, in my opinion, at least. And once everybody kind of had their sniff, and some dogs are being very respectful, like sniffing from like 10 feet away, just kind of like trying to catch the air as they sniff. And after a little while, I went over and I took the muzzle off. I mean, he had dogs right next to him. If he was going to react, he would have reacted. And from there, you know, I think it's just important to recognize what his tendencies were in that moment and what he was going to do. So we all, basically, I told Matt and Renee, who was working with me, I'm like, let's go to the other room where we can still see him, obviously, to see if we can pull all the dogs away from him and see if that makes him move with us. Well, it didn't, but it still gives me feedback to say, okay, he doesn't feel like he's a part of the group yet at all. A lot of times that whole feeling of like pulling away from a dog can make them go, hey, wait for me, and then they come closer. In his brain, it didn't. He was locked up. Like, this brain was not moving forward. It was like e-brake, like solid. So it was interesting because he was that way for about another 4 or 5 minutes. And I walked over to him about, I don't know, 5 or 10 feet away. I can't even remember. And I said, Pete, come on, you know, just kind of waved to him. And sure enough, he got up, started prancing around, and started to investigate the whole training room. It was like he just needed this moment to say, hey, you can come with me. The interesting part was I never put him into that spot. A lot of times when we do like place with a dog, or, you know, we correct and maybe send them away and they go to sit, the dog will sit and wait there in anticipation for like somebody to say, hey, come on, and then he goes. He did all that on his own. So once I basically got him moving, he made his way around the training room. He's moving around the dogs, and he made it into the daycare room, and all the dogs were in there. So we shut the door. So now we're just in the daycare room, and he was pacing a little bit, but it was 10 times better than his original reaction. So it was really, really good stuff. And from there, we finished the session about 10 minutes later, and on a good note, no interactions, no. We actually had one dog, Nala, a Ridgeback, is actually a staff dog, who I think it looked like tension when they kind of came together this way, you know, so they weren't really like sniffing each other's butts at all, but they were just standing there. And you could see the tension rise, and Nala kind of just like gave a quick little correction. It looked like she wasn't comfortable with that whole like energy there. And Pete just like reacted and backed up and moved away, and that was it. And that's like, not a reactive guy here. We just need to give him some social skills, and then we're going to work these social skills into some leash skills and kind of build onto it from there. So today, same routine except no muzzle, and he was in less than probably 3 minutes with everybody, almost with a smile on his face. And then the picture I took of him today that I'll post in the morning actually was like a different guy. I mean, it was really like a different guy. He did fantastic. He was out with the group for, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, sniffing the other dogs, which he didn't do much of yesterday at all. So he's already made a huge jump. And here's the other thing too, is we didn't have the exact same dogs yesterday as we did today. So, you know, he took the skills that he learned with a group of dogs yesterday, and he's applying it towards the group of dogs that he met today. So it was pretty cool. But hopefully we'll get some pictures of him. There's a bunch of little, you know, the Instagram stories of him too, if you guys want to check that out. So that's the story on Pete, Pupils, okay? Just be aware of him. Now, you guys, the workshop this weekend was fantastic. I had a blast of a time. Yes, Bobby, we're going to try to make him happy for you, that's for sure. I think he's a happy guy. He just needs some, like, straight and narrow. You've done a lot of really good work with him. We're just going to basically kind of fine-tune it for you, so it should be good. This workshop, this 2-day or 1-day workshop, so Paula was doing the morning part and really did, you know, like a great little talk on how humans and dogs are not the same and they shouldn't be treated the same. And that was really good. I thought that was a great way to start a workshop by letting everybody know, like, look, we are not two of the same species, and why we treat them like dogs or why we treat them like humans was really, I mean, it's confusing. So, you know, she had a great talk on that, and that really resonated with me as far as how she explained it to everybody. Because I think there's a lot of people that, you know, I saw some head nodding, like either they were in agreement or they're like, wow, yeah, that makes total sense. So, you know, I thought that was really good. Her whole talk on that. And then, you know, the leash work stuff that she did, which really, you know, watching the leash work of those dogs really helped me, you know, kind of judge what I was going to be doing that afternoon. And we went on a gorgeous pack walk. I mean, this was great, like huge trees, like shade. It's funny because she warned us for like a week that the bugs are going to be really bad, and they weren't at all. And I'm guessing there's like 23 dogs, maybe. I think that was the number, somewhere in there. So nice big group for a pack walk that was really good. So it gave a chance for myself and Serena, who works for me, and Chelsea, who used to work for me, now lives in Connecticut. She drove up to help me out with my end of things. And then, you know, Paula's walking along. So we had kind of 4 trainers spaced throughout the pack walk, kind of working with people as we went. So that was really cool too. And then, you know, the leash handling and everything that Paula was teaching was good stuff. And that really, it was interesting. I knew we were going to do a social that day, but from my perspective, I'd never done a social with a group of dogs I've never seen before. So in my mind, I thought, I need to run like a daycare setting so I can have an idea of what these dogs are like. And, you know, we saw all these dogs kind of moving around on leash and what their reaction was towards other dogs. And it was fun to sit there with Serena and Chelsea and go, okay, I want, as a kind of my core 2, 3 dogs or whatever, I want this one and this one and this one. And let's get these guys in, and then we're going to start to bring others in kind of one at a time and see how they go. The big difference is that when we do that at work, the owners are not around, okay? So kind of picture this very large rectangular fenced-in area, and as we're bringing dogs in, all the dogs are kind of moving towards the perimeter because that's where their owners are. And of course, we don't deal with that in the daycare setting at work because owners are not present. So this kind of makes it so dogs are going to intermingle more. You know, it's like bringing your kid to the playground. A lot of times they're going to go out with their friends, and sometimes those kids want to hang with their parents. So we were kind of trying to figure out a way to work our way through that and maneuver through it. And I can't remember how many dogs we got out total, but we were out there for probably hour and a half, I would guess. And you know, I think we had a great time. There was a couple of dogs that came out that were really nervous and really insecure, and I don't know, those dogs kind of fascinate me too. One of them was either feral or was feral at some point. And you know, obviously we had to get them at the end without just like, you know, letting them out to their owners and just kind of letting them free. But that was a pretty amazing experience. I kind of wish I had a cameraman at that point because the whole episode of it was very cool. The way we worked together and kind of backed each other up. And I mean, it was pretty cool the way it worked. And then we ran a social, and that was pretty amazing to me that we were able to get all the owners. So I think we had probably close to 30 people, I think. And then I don't know how many dogs. It might have been 17 or something total, because there were a couple of dogs there that socially were probably just not ready for a social. And I just didn't know them well enough, but I saw some reactivity that I was just like, eesh, this probably wouldn't be a good fit. It'd be different if it was in the group of dogs that I know and dogs that we see every day, but it wasn't. So I've got to keep things safe. You know, that's really what it boils down to, is I got to keep it safe. And I mean, we went for probably 15 minutes, I would guess, maybe 20. I don't know. And here's the thing with that too. So there's myself and Serena and Chelsea. So we're working with dogs we'd never seen before, number one. We have a group of people that maybe out of the 25 or 26 attendees, only 2 of them had seen a social before or been a part of one. so everybody, it's new to everybody else too. So I know there's that feeling of like, how's this gonna go? All these dogs are here, you know, they've got maybe a little history of reactivity, and now they're in with all these other dogs and they're off leash and all that kind of stuff. But I felt like we did a pretty. I'm gonna toot my own horn here, especially for Serena and Chelsea. I felt like we did a pretty amazing job of keeping things under wraps, keeping things under control, and really just, I'm hoping it was a really cool experience for everybody that attended. And it was a good time. And then we ran another social after that with some smaller dogs. And here's the thing, you guys. Normally, I can tell you that people running socials usually throughout this country don't mix big with small. The only time I'll do big with small at work is if like Gemma has come in and I know she's a small dog and I know her, or like maybe a couple of the smaller dogs that are daycare dogs that we know that are regulars. And then on top of that, we have to know who the bigger dogs are and to make sure that there is zero chance that those bigger dogs would react towards the smaller ones. Because if we're doing it during daycare, we know they're going to be okay during social as well. So now we throw into the mix, we've already done one social in the workshop. We put some of the dogs away that I didn't feel would have been a good mix with the smaller dogs. And we got the smaller dogs out and we got going, did a couple laps, cut everybody loose. And those smaller dogs were stressed. I mean, there's no other way around it because I could just see them. They really, other than maybe one or two, they worked their way right towards the perimeter, hanging around, kind of hiding in the corner, and for those of you that attended, you know that I kind of ended that a lot quicker for, a couple different reasons. One, when dogs start to congregate, which they did, and big and small starting to congregate that are stressed, that is not a good situation for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want them to even take or even have the chance of them turning on each other because they're just so stressed they got to let go. The other is I don't want to keep that state of mind for a long time either. Do you know what I mean? To me, that's not fair. And then on top of it, they're already, they're moving away and they're stressed, and it just was like, man, that's just not it's not a good vibe. So, to me, I thought it was best that we just end it, just get everybody back on leash and call it good. So, that's kind of why the second one was a little bit shorter than the first one. There was too much stress around. You guys know me. I've talked about how I think sometimes a little bit of stress can help dogs develop. In this case, it was too much, for those smaller dogs. So, I think if I had those smaller dogs around a group of small dogs that I know, kind of in my own setting, it might be different. It might be the same. I don't know. But it just I didn't feel like it was being fair to those dogs. And that's why I felt like I ended it. Or that's why I felt like the best thing to do was to end it at that point. I just don't think going for a long period of time would have been good for anybody at that juncture. I even kind of replayed it in my head going home that night before I went to bed the next morning, and I'm like, look, to me it's safety first, and by ending it and getting everybody out of there, I tried to, just make sure safety first. I always try to end on a positive note, but I feel like there's some times where you just have to be cognizant of what's going on and realizing that, hey, probably not going to get any further than where I'm at. So that's kind of what I looked at from there. The other aspect is not having a lot of small dogs in a workshop like that makes it more difficult, because I'd rather have a lot of dogs working with maybe some insecure dogs. The more dogs the merrier in that setting, and in that social was good for the bigger dogs, but the smaller dogs, there was too many hiding places for those small dogs, too many places to congregate for them in that setting, which was way different than the daycare setting, because the owners were outside, and it was different because everybody just kind of moved out, and we were okay. And I'm still trying to get a feel for all the dogs at that time too. So during that setting, I can't mix the bigs with the littles, because I got to keep it safe, and I don't know who everybody is. So that was kind of my thought process for those of you that attended that kind of wanted to know if you had questions after why we kind of ran, I should say why I kind of ran the things that ran it the way I thought was best for everybody involved. So that's kind of my my spiel on that, you guys. It was a great time, and Paula and I are talking actually about doing a 2-day at some point, a 2-day workshop, and I think that would be a lot of fun, because then we can be able to work with the dogs longer. You know, I think when you take a dog to a workshop, you always think, hey, I know I'm going to get my dog worked for like full on 8 hours this whole time, and there's a lot of times where it doesn't work that way, especially in a workshop where you're socializing dogs together. Like, we have to have the right mix. I mean, if I bring Gemma to a workshop and there's nothing but reactive German Shepherds around, chances are I'm not going to get her mixed in with everybody, you know? So there has to be a good match. And it was the first time I'd done it that way. So there's definitely certain things I would change if it happens again, and then there's definitely some things that I would keep the same. So you know, definitely a learning experience for me, that's for sure. And I'm looking forward to hopefully doing another one, that's for sure. So I'll just go back through the comments here a couple of times, or right now. So Dave Horner, yeah, Reba did good. We were really impressed with the whole event. Thanks, I appreciate that, Dave. I thought she did really well too. I think we learned a little bit about her as far as her nervousness and everything, and I think we have an evaluation set up for you guys too, from what I understand. So it'll be good. I'll be interested to see how she is in my setting. You know, obviously I'm more comfortable in my setting, and you know, I think it's kind of looking up and up for her too. You know, that's for sure. Linda, you saw how PJ had no interest in the other dogs, yet we have walked with our neighbor and her dog, but when my neighbor is walking the dog on our street, PJ wants to rush at him and lunge and makes a playful growl. Not acceptable. Should I use the tethering crop? I don't know if I would use that at that point. I think that I might do a little bit more threshold work of staying back far enough, you know, again, going back to that kind of point of discovery, of looking at it, of staying in that area where he's so far away where everything's good, but not crossing that threshold where he's reacting. I think I would kind of teeter in there, Linda, for a little while, but I think you're coming up at some point too. I mean, we can certainly sit down and talk about that, because I think that would be good to address for you and hopefully give you a handle on things. But I would work more of that threshold work, Linda, than I would jumping right into making sure he goes into meat. You know, even though I just don't know about the rush at him and lunge and make a playful growl. I mean, he's just excited, so we're just, you know, I would just try to do our best to cap that excitement, and sometimes just staying back a little further for a little longer and maybe working your way in much slower might help, instead of just being able to go right in. I think I would take a lot more time and let that be, you know, I think you're talking about maybe go for a walk. We have walked with our neighbor and her dog. Yeah, so it's almost like that's the walk at that point, is him burning that fuel to eventually get closer and closer and closer. So don't look at it like I've got to do all this and go for the walk. Look at it as, hey, this is going to be the walk, basically. It's just getting close to the dog, and then I would go from there. But yeah, I think if we can get together, that would be good, Linda. That's for sure. I saw there's a couple more questions. Dave says, why socials are important for reactive dogs. It's a confidence builder, you guys. It's problem solving. It's them learning how to be a dog. It gets those instincts back out. Either they have that motion or that instinct to move away, or to stay and understand that nothing bad is going to happen, and the movement of the people. I mean, it's just a great concept. Again, I say it's the best tool that there is for insecure dogs, reactive dogs, aggressive dogs, happy dogs. I mean, I haven't seen where it's just been overwhelming for a certain dog. I mean, in my own setting, again, I think for the smaller dogs it was too much because there's a lot of bigger dogs around, and wasn't the right mix. But I mean, I just look at the whole concept of it, you know. Corey, how can you tell if a dog daycare is right for your dog? Corey, message me. Tell me where. I mean, seriously, you have to feel good about it. There has to be some sort of set schedule for downtimes. I mean, we have a lot of dogs that kind of create that own downtime for themselves throughout the day. I mean, early afternoon dogs are like, they're starting to rest. I know you have a younger dog, so I would make sure that that dog is going to get some crate time while it's there, some downtime, and then it's not out the entire time, just allowed to romp and everything. I just would want to make sure there's a lot of structure. Find out, make sure the dogs are supervised at all times, make sure there's vaccinations that are required, and I would get a report. You know, setting up an evaluation is just as good for your dog as it would be for you, trying to see the place, get to know people, what the setup is, what the smell is, you know. And look, accidents happen, dogs poop here and there and do their thing, but there shouldn't be just like this underlying like smell, you know what I mean? So just go check it out. If it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right, you know. So Linda, I was blown away at how you all had everything under control. Yeah, it's the way that it works. That's for sure. It's pretty cool stuff. But all right, you guys, I'm gonna call it good for tonight. You guys have a great night. I will be back on Monday. Hopefully everything goes as planned. And social tomorrow night. I don't know, weather looks bad, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. That's for sure. So we will see you guys next Monday. I just released a new podcast today with Chris Potter from Maine. So if you guys have a second, check that out. It was a good little interview. I'm almost halfway done the 50 states. I think she was state number 24. So I've got a couple good ones lined up. Should be a good time. And again, if you guys need anything, just let me know. All right?